welcome back to Story Concierge. This week I am talking about rejections again. Oh my God, I feel like that's all I'm talking about. But I want to get into a little bit more specifics of what it's meant when you were told that your book is flat. Okay, this week we are talking about the oh so dreaded feedback, your book is flat. It's like the worst feedback. And what does it mean? It means that for some reason, the person reading it couldn't get into it. It means that you are doing a couple of things. It could be that your plotting is off. It could be that you are telling instead of showing, which is one of the biggest things that I see, and the characters are just not there because of it. And it could mean just that you are spending way too much time trying to be a good writer instead of focusing on storytelling. So those are the three things I'm going to talk about today very quickly to help you get your story into shape. Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is your plotting. Make sure that you are following story structure. It doesn't matter if you've been writing for 25 years or 2 years or 25 minutes. Story structure works and it's there for a reason. Now, I'm a pantser, so I will do a video soon on how to plot when you are a pantser. So I don't do this first, but I do it in revisions. I want you to make sure that you have specific elements in your story. One, you need to establish who the main character is on that first page. You need to establish what she wants, what will happen if she doesn't get it, or at least allude to it, the promise of the story. What will happen if she doesn't get what she wants? I don't want you opening with, I want this, this, and this, or oh my God, I'm gonna die. But it needs to be there. The promise of the story needs to be on that first page or very, very soon. I think you should do it in the first paragraph because when I pick up a book at Barnes & Noble, if that first paragraph doesn't get me, then I put it down. Unless the title is amazing or somebody has told me the book is great, most likely I will put it down unless I know the promise of the story. So make sure that is there. The second thing that you need to have is an inciting incident. The inciting incident is not at the quarter mark. The quarter mark is something different. The inciting incident is what starts your story. In Harry Potter, the inciting incident is that Hagrid shows up and tells Harry, you're a wizard. The next thing that you need to have is that at the quarter mark, they need to enter into a new world. I'm going to use Harry Potter again because it's easy. Harry Potter literally goes to Hogwarts. He has gone into a new world. If you want to take something a little bit more subtle, The Fault in Our Stars, which is one of my favorite young adult novels by John Green. The Fault in Our Stars, Hazel Grace Lancaster, the inciting incident is that she meets Augustus. The exotic world or the new world for her is when her and Augustus start dating, and she makes that decision to start dating him. She has gone from being a lonely girl dying from cancer to somebody who now has a boyfriend, and she's out in the world. She has entered a new world. The next thing that you need to have is the very middle of your story. The middle of your story has to have one of two things. You can do it either way. Recommitment, where your character is recommitting to whatever it is they're doing, their life, their goals, anything they're in a way taking a step back and they're recommitting or digging their heels in further. I like to use the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It came out a while ago, I think 15 years or so more, but it's actually very well done. And at the middle mark, both Matthew McConaughey's character Ben and Kate Hudson's character Andy Anderson, both of them in the middle of the book recommit. They also, because they're working in opposing forces to each other, they don't really have a mere moment where they're asking themselves, like, what am I getting into? But they both dig their heels in and recommit to the goal of their particular story in their new world, which supports their goals in their opening sequence, how we've met them when we know what they want. So for them, they do enter this new world because they start dating, and in the middle, they recommit to what they really, really want. And that is really, really important. Now, if you take a movie like The Fugitive, you look at the main character, and at that exact middle moment, he's actually literally looking into a mirror. So a lot of writing coaches and a lot of people who know a lot about story talk about the middle being the mirror moment. And that's when your character is being introspective, and they can literally be looking into a mirror. In No Way Out with Kevin Costner that came out in the 80s, he's also literally looking in a mirror. If take any of your favorite movies and stop them at the halfway point, and I guarantee they are going to have a mirror moment or a recommitment scene. So your book, no matter if you're writing light romance, Hallmark style movies, or you're writing a thriller, or you're writing fantasy, it doesn't matter. Your book needs to have that middle of the story where these things happen. Then obviously, you're going to be going up in a trajectory that's up. You want to have a climax, which means everything comes to a head. In How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, everything comes to a head when they're at that party and they both find out that the other has a bet and they're both really upset about it. And then immediately we go down to the all is lost moment, which is the next thing that you have to have. Then the end, the resolve. Now, great storytelling, the main character, she's the author of her own disaster. She's the author of her own story. So she needs to get herself out of it. She can use her friends to get herself out of it. She can have them as support, but she needs to pull herself out of it. Do not make your ending too convenient, or your story will also fall flat. The next thing I'm going to talk about is showing versus telling. And I know this is evil. Writers, hear me. I feel your pain on this. I understand, because it's the worst thing that you can be told, because you're like, oh, I'm telling the story, obviously, but this is true. But make sure that you are not info dumping. If you are writing in the third person, I see this so often with third person narration where they just go on and on and on describing this and that. Stop that. Don't do that. Your character, you have to have your character's opinion. Look at Harry Potter and the way that things are done. Look at Marian Keyes' Sushi for Beginners, and also The Other Side of the Story. Both of those are great example of third person writing where she is showing us who the characters are by how they think about things that are happening to them. They never have like a long laundry list describing stuff. It's really, really important that you understand that your characters having opinions about things is what sets them apart and what makes it showing instead of telling. Imagine if I'm telling you a story about a gift my sister gave me, and I said like, well, she gave me a blue shirt with a white collar and it came with a pair of shorts. That is boring. You wouldn't do that. You might be like, oh my God, my sister does not know me at all. I don't like blue. I don't like collars. I'd never wear anything that matched. I don't understand after, 40 years how she doesn't know where I shop or whatever. And if that's in the third person, it would be the same thing. Stephanie opened the shirt from her sister, convinced once again that her sister knew nothing about her because she would never wear this style of shirt. Do you understand the difference? Do you see the difference? That's a really good way to do showing instead of telling in your story. Also, and this is just going to be really quick because I've done many videos about this, but dialogue. The way that your character speaks is totally based on the way that they see the world, and the way that they see the world shows us who they are. Your character's dialogue is a very, very good way to show us things that are going on with that character instead of telling us. Now, some authors fall into the trap, and also I see this in movies and television when the character tells another character all this stuff, like, oh, I grew up on the bayou and blah, 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 blah. Stop that. That is boring. That information, if it needs to be woven in there, needs to be woven in organically. If you watch primetime television, Chicago Med is a show that is on Wednesday nights here in America, and there is a character called Crockett, and he's a relatively new character, I think within the last 2 seasons, and he has a backstory, and he does tell people his backstory, but it's woven in such a way that it doesn't feel like he's telling us, the audience. So if you're going to tell characters anything, any kind of backstory, and you're going to have one character tell another character, make sure that there's an organic reason for it happening, and do not tell the reader anything. Okay, the next reason that your story is falling flat, and this is going to be a head scratcher for so many of you. You are trying to be a good writer and you are not focusing on storytelling. The whole reason you are telling a story, the whole reason you're a writer is because you are telling a story. Story is always first. I'm going to repeat that. Story is always first. When you focus on being a good writer because somebody told you to, or maybe you feel insecure, I've done that myself. I felt like, oh my God, I don't have an MFA. I'm dyslexic. I spent many, many years in the film industry. Like, maybe I'll never be a good writer. I'll never win a Pulitzer. Or I've looked at some book that uses all these descriptions and I'm like, well, I need to do this. That does never work. It never works because you need to be focused on the story. And any big descriptions or literary type writing or MFA style writing that you put in there is fine as long as it moves the story forward. When you're adding descriptions and big words and flowery sentences because somebody told you that you need to be a better writer, guess what? That book is going to fall very, very flat. Some examples of great books in literature that do such an amazing example of not doing this, but the stories work really well, are The Catcher in the Rye and The Outsider. These are old books. They're very old, or older than me, but these books are brilliant, and that's why I will use them, because they're not trying to be a good writer. Both those authors, J.D. Salinger and S.E. Hinton, were just telling a story in the best way that they could, and that's why it works so well. So I'm going to review really, really fast. Some reasons that you could be getting the note that your book is flat is your story arcs are not working. It means that instead of going up, 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 your book is just going like this. You don't have enough up and downs. You haven't followed traditional story structure, and the story's fine, but it's just not going anywhere and it's not grabbing the attention. The second one is that you are doing way too much telling and not enough showing. And the third one is you are focusing too hard on being a good writer and not focusing enough on storytelling. Okay? I hope this was helpful. And if you've gotten that feedback, please drop a comment in the comments below so we can start talking about it. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I'm also on Facebook. I have a group for female writers, and I'd love for you to join. The link is in the description. Have a brilliant rest of your week and happy writing.